Baylor basketball is set in recruiting in 2022, but even going into this next season with Keonte George, Baylor basketball is set in general. This is Locked On Baylor.
You are Locked On Baylor, your daily podcast on the Baylor Bears, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's going on, everybody? Drake Toll here, joined by Jason Jordan of Sports Illustrated, the director of basketball recruiting at SI, talking all things Baylor basketball. And I'd like to thank LinkedIn Jobs for being the official college football and basketball recruiting sponsor for the College Network at Locked On. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the jobs and the candidates for your job faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Jason, Baylor freaking basketball. If they're good at anything, they're good at basketball. I know you know that, but where I want to start in recruiting with 2022, it seems like Baylor has built an elite group of guys. Where do you view it on a national scale with your job at Sports Illustrated?
As far as their 2022 class?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, one of the best in show for sure. When you start with a guy like Keonte George, that's a great place to start, right? Just one of the best. He made our SI All-American first team, and we had him ranked number 5 in the final SI 99 for 2022. What can you say? Dominant at all. I always gauge guys based off how they play against other elite guys. And so obviously Keonte played on maybe not obviously, but he played on the Adidas 3SSB for Southern Assault. And so every time he played against another elite guy, you could tell that it was, his eyes got wide and, he was aware of the moment and he thrived in the moment. And so I always look for that because you'd be surprised that, when 5 stars play against 5 stars, you would think, oh, yeah, they must really lick their chops at this. But they usually don't. They usually do the I'm too cool to score thing.
Yeah.
They usually do the, I'm going to pass it off. I'm going to be a playmaker. I'm too cool, right? But Keontae's it's like he's like a vicious animal. He turns into a vicious in a great way. And so he's a guy who took it to another level even in his senior year at IMG. He's a guy who thrives in the big moment. Everybody says they want the last shot. He's taking the last shot. He's gonna go down with no bullets left in the gun. And that's his mentality. People talk about a Mamba mentality. I've heard him talk about the Mamba mentality, but he definitely adopts it. And a guy who obviously has, played well in Canada, 23 points a game, 2 30-plus point games. A lot of people were like, well, are you shocked that he's having this success early on? No, not at all. I actually kind of expected it because, he's a guy who's going to come in, step in, and I always expected him to produce right away, no matter who's there, because he's also a guy who's a student of the game and wants to learn more, wants to be the best player. So while he has that mentality, he's also a guy who's going to soak up a lot of knowledge. So the guy who Scott's going to you guys are going to love there, and Scott's going to be able to use in a lot of different ways and a lot of different lineups.
Looking, Jason, at not just Keonte George, but guys in general that Baylor's recruited over the last 15 years or so. Scott Drew's been able to bring in 5-star guys, 4-star guys that have made impacts both out of the transfer portal and for guys like Keonte. How much has the game changed in your mind now with the transfer portal? But let's put it like this, right? Northern Kentucky has got a guy who's a senior who's averaging 22 points per game. He's going to transfer, be a grad transfer, and go play his last year of eligibility at Texas. Sure. And Texas could get this grad transfer senior who's 23 or a 17, 18-year-old guy out of high school to come play for them. A lot of these schools are going after the older guys, the Brady Mannix of the world that are transferring. How much tougher does that make Power 5, Power 6 basketball on these newcomers?
It's tough. It's significantly tough. And I'll tell you, I did a story about this for the underclassmen. I talked to a coach at Peach Jam a couple weeks ago. Coaches, multiple. Now, they all said the same thing. They were like, Jay, I'm telling you, you talk to those guys, you better tell them. They better commit, because the days of the 4 and 5 man high school only classes are gone. Like, they're done. As long as the transfer portal is the way it is, and I don't see that changing in the foreseeable future. They are. I mean, it makes sense, right? Because at the end of the day, this is people's livelihoods. They got to win. And so if you can take a proven winner at the level over a guy who you think projects to be, we're not talking guys like Keonte George, right?
Yeah,
like you're going to take Keonte George, right? We're talking like the guys that didn't make the McDonald's All-American game that are still really good, like the 4 stars in the 26 to 75 range. Great, really good players, but if you can get a guy who averaged, to your point, 22 at a mid-major, it's like, I think, and then you look at their schedule and you see that they did have 18 in that game against Vanderbilt, and then they did have 24 in that game, that random blowout loss to Michigan. You see that it translates. You can work with that guy. He's going to be probably a little more productive than the freshman guy that you're going to have to bring along a little more. Coaches tell me now that they don't even. You've seen a few, but the days of, hey, just reclassify up. We'll get you there. Just reclassify. Like 3 years ago, that was a thing. They don't do it as much now. You'll see it less and less because they're starting to tell kids, just take your time, develop. You'll be good. Just come when it's your time. So I know a kid, I won't say who he is, but he was, I mean, I'm talking high major kid. I'm talking McDonald's level kid. And he was like, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to go. I can do it educationally. I have the classes. And he said he talked to the staff and they were like, No, you need to, don't you cook an oven a little more. We got this other kid that is coming transferred, but you don't, no need to rush it. Be a McDonald's All-American and then come after. And he stayed, so that's the new era that we're in. That's how it's changing it, black and white.
When you have a guy in Keonte George that's that good, Jason, what sets? Look, he's still young. He's never played a single minute of college basketball against Kansas at Allen Fieldhouse. What makes him already on par with the 22-point mid-major kid or even a Brady Manick who's a high major going high major? What gives you that confidence in a guy in Keonte George who has not stepped on the court in an actual NCAA basketball game?
Mentality. And that's the quick answer is his mentality. Like all the 5-star kids don't have. It's actually pretty rare to have. Mentality wise, I would say another guy in that class who had the level of mentality that Keonte has is Nick Smith Jr.
Yeah.
Wow.
Hey, I'm from Arkansas. You're barking right up my freaking alley, Jason. Right up my alley.
Right. So a guy who knows, he doesn't think. He knows he's the best, whether it's true or not. Yeah. He knows he's the best player on the court at all times, and he expects meaning everybody else on the court to, understand that as well, because he knows it. He doesn't think it. He knows it. Keontae's like that, and when you have that type of mentality at all times on the court, it's going to translate for sure. Because at the end of the day, while he hasn't played a college game, he has played against guys that are going to be lottery picks, and he played because you got to remember Keonte played in the NIBC, right? So he's not playing against your local high school. He's in a conference with Montverde, Sunrise Christian, Link Prep. The guys like this, these guys are going to be in the green room. He played a whole season with them, and then in the summer he played on the Adidas 3 SSB. So he's playing against MJ Rice, who's at Kansas right now. Both of them had 28 in that game. He's playing against NBA guys all the time. So he's getting that level of talent, but the thing that clicks for him and the things that separates him is his mentality. And that's what's going to help him to translate from day one.
Jason, I want to get into really the Baylor's grip on college basketball now. I don't think that they're blue blood yet, but I do think they're trending in the direction of at least one of the elite programs in college. Before that, though, the last thing I want to toss at you on Keonte George, the kid goes to Canada and he's playing the entire country of Brazil in basketball. And he's just tearing it up. The guy was maybe the best player, most electric player that I saw in that entire tournament. You said you weren't shocked by that. What did you see out of him in Canada, and does that translate then from the international game back down to the college game come this fall?
Absolutely. It's consistency, and that goes in line with the mentality, because at the end of the day, you can't control who you're playing against, but you can control your approach, and you can control what you do to prepare. And so we haven't even talked about his training regimen, which is insane. He's the guy who's drinking the raw egg and doing the Rocky jogging thing at 5 o'clock in the morning. He's a really hard worker, doing 2-a-days, 5-6 days a week. And he's done that for years, right? And so then you add the mentality on top of it. It's absolutely going to translate. And you'll see. I mean, you'll see in your exhibition games, he's going to control. It doesn't matter. He's going to, and I'm not saying he's not going to have, he's not going to hit the freshman wall. Everybody does that, right? And there are a lot of things he needs to learn as a lead guard. I mean, but the good thing is he has help in that position. The load won't be on him at all times. So, I think that'll only help him thrive. And once again, like I said, he's a guy who wants to learn. He wants to be better. He's not a guy that knows it all. So, combine all that together, it doesn't shock me that he's being productive. Not at all.
I like it. Jason, again, I want to get into Baylor's relative scope on college basketball. But first, I got to tell everybody home about LinkedIn and what they've got going on right now for guys. I promise Jason is not going anywhere. The guy is lights out. Does anybody knows basketball? Jason, he's got it. And he's going to continue when it comes to scope of basketball right after I tell you about LinkedIn, because if you need a job, LinkedIn's for you. If you need someone to work at your job or for you, LinkedIn is also for you, because 810 million people use it. You add your job to the purple hashtag hiring frame, your LinkedIn profile. It spreads the word. You tweet it, they put it out, and people can see that you are hiring. It's super simple. There are screening questions you can ask. Hey, what do you think about this? What do you think about that? And narrow things down to get the candidate that you want. It's quick, it's easy, and it's why small businesses rate LinkedIn #1 in jobs and delivering quality hires versus the leading opponents. 40 million people visit LinkedIn every week. 40 million people visit LinkedIn to find a job every week. You can post your job listing for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege. Make it linkedin.com/LockedOnCollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions do apply. Jason, Baylor's freaking good at basketball, man. Baylor is good at basketball. Would you put this program, from everything you've seen and what you've covered from the high school game and talking to recruits and other coaches, in the category of elite in today's realm of college basketball?
Absolutely, 100%. And I'll tell you how I'll gauge it on the recruiting world. I've definitely seen a shift over the last, let's call it 5 years, with elite recruits, and the excitement of hearing from Scott Drew. I talked to Coach Drew, man. And you can tell by the inflection of the tone, it's like a genuine excitement. Yeah. It's like, and I heard, it's like, and I had a kid, I don't mind saying who it was. It was Cooper Flagg, told me the other day. His mom handed him the phone and was like, somebody's on the phone. And it's like, and he was like, it was John Shire. And he was like, I couldn't believe it was John Shire. No. I've heard guys say that about Drew and Baylor and Alvin Brooks, right? Yeah. Like, who was an amazing recruit, as you well know. But yeah, just in that regard, I would say I've seen that shift, and that's what kind of signals me to say yes to your initial question. So for sure, I would definitely put them in that realm.
Do you think, I would going to ask this. This is off script. I'm completely going off script here.
Yeah.
You lose one of your best assistants in Jerome Tang, who's not just one of the best on Baylor staff, but across the country. Highly touted for years and years for what he did at Baylor, to go to Kansas State. How big of a hit does a program take when you lose a name like Jerome Tang?
I mean, amazing recruiter, amazing guy, as you well know. Jerome Tang was, just one of those guys, right? Everybody likes him. Right. And so, but kudos to him. I mean, you knew it was coming, right? He's too talented a coach not to lead a program. Right. So you knew that was coming. They knew that was coming. They actually encouraged it for years.
Yeah.
But it's just like next man up. Like Alvin Brooks is his name rings out with recruits. Alvin Brooks is a guy that everyone knows and loves. So it's more so about, all respect to Jerome Tang, it's to use it in a different, because we're talking about, do we see them as an elite program, right? So then let's talk about a place that we already know is at the top. Duke. Let's take Duke.
Yeah.
Okay. So Duke is Duke, right? You don't have to sell Duke as Duke. They lose Nolan Smith. Everybody's like, Nolan Smith, the greatest recruiter in the world. Nolan's my guy, right? And he is an amazing recruiter. So they lose him. They're like, I don't know. Man, Duke's that's going to hurt. That's going to hurt,
Yeah.
It didn't hurt, because at the end of the day, the brand is the brand, right? Then you get guys that are great guys and relatable guys and mesh well in dens and living rooms with moms and dads. And that's Jerome Tang, but that's also Alvin Brooks. And then he's selling a brand that is, it's like selling water in a desert. That's how Baylor is. And that's how elite recruits look at Baylor now, for sure. So that Baylor offer, that Baylor interest is something that is peaking. And I'm starting to, I did a story on dream offers and, why they don't sometimes materialize. And so, you're starting to hear Baylor in that conversation too, for guys that grow up in that area and, because they're going to remember the national championship. They're going to remember the runs that they've had, the deep runs in the NCAA tournament. And so they're laying that type of foundation for them to be dream offers for years to come. So I definitely, to your point, I'd put them in that conversation for sure.
Jason, we have here at Baylor what we call these little rose-colored glasses, where all we see is exactly what we want to see in football, basketball, everything. Yeah. When you say the word brand, Baylor fans, they start to construct their idea of what Baylor is based on a fan's standpoint. When you think Baylor and brand, what do you see that as?
Well, in my world, I look at, as top tier college basketball program, and I would put them up there with the Blue Bloods. I would put them in the conversation of the Duke, Kansas, Kentucky, that realm, 100%. Like that's not even, I don't even have to think about that. And I base it off the reception I get from top tier players, not even top tier. I start there because that's who you want, right? That's who you want in your bench. So the reception I get from top tier players when talking about that brand and talking about, especially in the NIL world, they talk about how excited they are about the offer and how much that brand can do for them, because it's okay to talk about that now. It's a new world we're living in. We can talk, players can talk about their brands, but now they can talk about the brand, right? So that's what I would base it off, that first and foremost. And then, obviously they've had success and they've had consistent success and they're built for success for the future. And they continue to get guys like Keonte George, who's going to make them look good in the green room in June, stuff like that. So that's what I would base it off for sure. But they definitely, that's an easy yes.
Jason, I'm going to drop a Locked On Baylor bomb on you here and get into how conference realignment is going to change the recruiting realm in basketball. As you see teams like Houston, great basketball recruiting market down in Houston, merge into the Big 12 and become a bigger brand with these schools. First, though, I'm going to tell the folks at home about Built Bar. Built Bar, right now, they are running, dude, this is my favorite. Covered in chocolate, 100% real chocolate, delicious, indulgent, cookie dough Built Bar puffs. That is right. I have told you about the banana ones. I told you about the fudge ones. Those are all fine. These are freaking cookie dough puffs. They are light, chewy. They are, again, 100% real chocolate. And before you think, oh, that doesn't sound very healthy, it doesn't, but it is. Only 160 calories. They have 15 grams of protein, too. That's more than like chicken, depending on how much chicken you eat. All the joys of cookie dough without the hassle of making cookie dough, which I don't really know if you have to like make cookie dough. It kind of comes in neither here nor there. Like all Built Bars, though, they are unbelievable, and they have these the fluffy just the Built Bar puffs. That's what you need to go to. Built.com right now. Go get a cookie dough chunk puff. That's what it's called. Cookie dough chunk puff. Low fat, low sugar, low calorie at Built.com. Use that promo code LOCKED15 too. You get 15% off. Again, promo code LOCKED15 for the cookie dough puffs at Built.com. Jason Jordan of Sports Illustrated, college basketball, college sports in general, NIL, transfer portal, realignment. Dude, the buzzwords are out there. The SEO, it's like crazy. Right now, what you see in realignment, especially in the Big 12, do you feel like this conference is trending toward being the mecca of college basketball recruiting?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And I'll say this. I'll say in the world, I actually did a story on this when USC and UCLA moved to the Big Ten. That news rocked everybody. And so I talked to elite guys and I said, well, what do you think about that? Right. They're both recruited. In this case, I talked to guys who UCLA and USC were really high on. And so I said, what do you think about that? Is that big for you? Is that, and I'll be honest, people might not believe this, but for a 16, 17, 18-year-old kid, they're like, they don't care. Like they understand the Big Ten. Yeah, I like to play in the Big Ten, but the reality is they don't understand like the nuances of the back channel things with, I think that's where the bigger, I don't know if they're going to come in and be like, I can play in the big, this is what they say. I don't care. It's about the system that I go to. So if I were to pick UCLA, it wouldn't be because they're going to the Big Ten. If I were to pick USC, it's not because they're going to the Big Ten. It's because the system is conducive to what I feel will get me to the next level. And so I think that's the case with most recruits, elite or otherwise. So from that standpoint, I don't know that the impact will be immeasurably great. I don't know that that's going to be the shift. If there is a shift, I don't know that'll be the indicator. At least from their mouths that, this is what they say. So, I don't know that it's at least early on, I don't know that it's the shift that people think. I don't know if that's going to be the thing that the catalyst that's going to drive all these recruits to a certain conference. I don't see that.
I think I've never thought of this, Jason. You've sparked a bubble. No kid is going, oh, wow. Well, the Big Ten has a $50 million revenue for its teams. The SEC is 45. Yeah. I'm not going there. It's never going to affect them. They're never going to feel that. Your team, hey, your school's program just made $2 extra million. The odds that athlete is going to tangibly see that, oh, look, there are 3 more kinds of Gatorade bars that are in our school cafeteria for athletes. That's right as far as it's going to go for most of these guys.
Yeah.
And in that, it feels like NIL transfer portal is becoming much more prevalent. But when it comes to teams like let's throw out Oregon State, for example. Let's say that Washington State, for example, their conferences, the Pac-12, implodes, which is not impossible. It looks like they're kind of on their last ropes, and those schools have to move to the Mountain West. Does it then become a factor for a recruit comparing the Mountain West to the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10?
Yeah, 100%. Because the reality is at the end of the day, guys want to play in March. Now, that is what they do pay attention to, right? So is it easier to get to March? Is it easier to get TV? They want to be on TV and they want to play in March. No. So that is the one thing I think, when you're that type, then now that type of scenario, I think, parents and handlers are going to step in and educate even more so. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So in that regard, yes. But, in the other realm, by and large, guys are trying to go to a system. And the thing that matters to these kids is now, I mean, because in the new world we live in, is what's your NIL pitch, depending on where the kid falls tier-wise in the class. What's your NIL pitch? How much money can I make? Honestly, these are the conversations, and it's okay to do it now. We got to, we're all adjusting to that. And, how will you use me in your system? And, is this system something that, I could see myself thriving in? And that's what matters to them.
Jason, before we get you out of here, if Baylor folks want to find more of your stuff, more of your recruiting, writing, and multimedia analysis, where can they go? How can they find you?
So SI.com, college basketball section, just look there. I'm always there a lot. So, and then I see you have the Twitter handle, Jason Jordan SI, and on Instagram, Jason C. Jordan. So, yeah, check me out there. I'm always there all the time. I'm working 25/8, I like to say.
Basketball doesn't stop.
Oh, not at all.
Football stops. So, look, March rolls around, football stops, man. There's none of that. Basketball, constant.
100%.
I love it. Well, Jason, thanks for coming on today. Great to have you. Look forward to having you again.
Thank you, man. Look forward to it.
And for those listening, thanks for joining Locked On Baylor, making it your first listen every single day, Monday through Friday. Now we're back in the full swing of things. Come back tomorrow. As I told you yesterday that Cam Stewart was going to join. I lied. He's coming on Wednesday now. Come back tomorrow. Cam Stewart will be here. We're breaking down the top 10 toughest Baylor football games in this fall on Locked On Baylor.